Hi, I'm Jingyu, and my topic is investigating the recreational value of South Oakville's woodlands. Nowadays, the importance of green open space has become more pronounced, as demonstrated by the rising proportion of household expenditure spent on recreational activities and outings. Besides, nature-based recreation is considered the fastest growing sector in global recreation, and there is also a rising demand for forest recreation during and after the epidemic. South Oakville has more than 280 woodlots, covering a total area of 1,408 hectares, and its urban forest canopy cover is 32.6%. The objectives of this study are understanding woodland recreational use patterns, exploring people's preference for woodland characteristics, assessing the recreational value of woodlands, gaining a comprehensive understanding of people's satisfaction with woodland management, as well as providing advice to decision makers based on respondents' satisfaction and feedback. This is the first woodland recreation survey in Oakville, which includes three key aspects: perceptions, economic values, and woodland management. When selecting woodlands, those over 10 hectares were first selected. Then a total of 18 woodlands were visited to check public visitation, and according to this map, these 6 pink marked areas are finally selected as study sites. The method of this study is questionnaire-based recreation survey. Questionnaire was divided into 6 sections. They were woodland use patterns, preference for woodland characteristics, satisfaction with recreational facilities, willing to pay for woodland management, assessment of woodland management efficiency, and an optional personal information section. When calculating the economic value generated by woodlands, the first method I use is travel cost method. I use this equation to calculate the travel cost per person per visit. This equation consists of 3 components. They're a transportation fee plus accommodation fee plus ticket fee. Another method I use is contingent valuation method. In this method, I ask people they're willing to pay towards woodland. The first willing to pay is the willing to pay one, which is the annual willing to pay for woodland management based on preference for forest features and improvement activities. Willing to pay 2 is the annual willing to pay for woodland maintenance to support activities under climate change. After collecting all data, I did data analysis in R. I use descriptive statistical methods, including graphic tools such as box plots, pie charts, Sankey plots to visualize the difference between the groups. I conduct the Shapiro test, and the results show the data was not normally distributed. So I conducted Cruz-Covallis test and Wilcoxon rank test to compare medians between groups to check if there was significant differences. I also employed the Pearson's chi-square test to check whether there is independence between categorical variables. Regression and correlation analysis are also used to explore associations between numeric variables. Finally, I conducted multinomial logical regression to check the odds of independent variable influencing multiple categorical dependent variables. Finally, I've got a total 271 respondents, and 80% of them were inhabitants. And walking is the predominant activity in the woodlands, then followed by hiking. In terms of time spent, 60% of respondents spent equal to or less than 1 hour to each visit, while only 7% of respondents spending more than 5 hours in the woodlands. And it's worth noting that all of them were camping in the BCPP, and BCPP is the sole park that permits camping in Oakville. These 2 bar charts shows the frequency of visits during the warm and cold seasons, and we can conclude that during the warm season, the frequency of daily, weekly, monthly visits is higher than during the cold season. According to the results of Kruskal and Wilcoxon test, I found that visitors stay longer in Woodlands than inhabitants per visit. The young age group spend more time in Woodlands per visit than the old age group. Inhabitants visit Woodlands more frequently than visitors, and the old age group is more frequent in visiting Woodlands than the middle-aged and young age groups. These box plots show the time spent among different activities, and picnics take the longest time, while walking taking the shortest time. Walking is the most commonly chosen activity on a yearly basis, while picnics being the least frequent. In terms of the preference for Woodland characteristics, these Sankey plots shows people's preference. Like this dark green bar indicate the highest number of selections. Bright green bar shows the second highest number of selections, and the forest green bar indicate fewest selections. And we can conclude that respondents prefer mixed stands, twin big trees, medium amount trees, medium dense in the story, low ground vegetation, as well as low amount of data. The average satisfaction with woodland management rating is 83, and 36% of respondents gave or above equal to this average. And only vet categories show significant difference in certification levels, with visitor being more satisfied than inhabitants. This table shows the average travel costs and willing to pay, as well as the proportion equal to or above the average. And note again, the willing to pay 1 is annual willing to pay for woodland management. Willing to pay 2 is annual willing to pay for woodland maintenance in the context of climate change. And the percentage of people willing to pay for woodland management is 65.3, and the percentage of people willing to pay for woodland maintenance under climate change is slightly higher, which is 65.7%. And the maximum of both willing to pay is $100. By the way, the proportion of people not incurring travel costs is 49.4%. According to the multinomial logistic regression atlas, these blank cells here means no significant relationship between woodland characteristics and willing to pay, and the plus sign indicates a positive impact on willing to pay. A minus sign indicates a negative impact on willing to pay. So we can conclude that 1 unit increase in willing to pay 1 was significantly associated with a higher odds of selecting broadleaf over conifers and broadleaf, low amount trees over high amount trees, and low in the story over dense in the story. Conversely, 1 unit increase in willing to pay 2 was significantly associated with a lower odds of selecting twin big trees over different tree sizes, low amount trees over high amount trees, low in the story over dense in the story, and low ground vegetation rather than high ground vegetation. According to the correlation test, there is also a positive correlation between income and willing to pay. Young and old people use the woodlands differently. Like young people use the woodland in a more diverse way, including picnicking and hiking. This is because they usually go picnics for social purpose, and they have relatively better physical ability to allow them engage in more intense activities. However, old people use the woodland in more contemplative way, and visitors usually stay longer in the woodlands than residents because they show a higher engagement in camping and picnicking, and they incur higher travel costs due to relatively longer travel distance. Picnics are the least frequent on an annual basis because they are easily affected by the weather, and they're usually scheduled on weekends or holidays when people have more flexible time for leisure. Walking takes the least amount of time each visit due to the small woodland size in Oakville, and most trails are short. People show their preference of mixed stands because these kind of stand can provide richer ecosystems or services, and they prefer tall and big trees because this survey was conducted in summer when it's the hottest period in Oakville, and hotter environments tend to drive people to woodlands that provide ample shade. And people show the preference of a medium dense and a story low ground vegetation and moderate tree density because they prefer semi-open woodlands as the destination for recreation because this kind of woodland can provide more open space, open views, and give them a sense of security. By the way, understory and ground vegetation are considered indicators of forest diversity because they can help enhance landscape value. Finally, they prefer a low amount of dead wood because they think the dead wood is a part of the naturalness of the woodland. However, too much can negatively affect landscape value due to increased woodland clutter. There is no significant difference in willing to pay by education level. This means that the importance of woodlands is widely recognized regardless educational attainment. And people with higher willing to pay will prefer open spacious woodland environments because, as I mentioned above, semi-open woodlands are preferred by most respondents as a destination for recreation. Conversely, a higher willing to pay too represents a greater preference for diverse and resilient woodland ecosystems because they can help enhance carbon sequestration and also increase habitat complexity. However, this study also have limitations, due to the small sample size, and may not fully check the dynamics of woodland users. And the survey was conducted in the summer only, the period when people visit woodlands most frequently. People may exhibit stronger willing to pay. Dense summer woodlands may also have a visual impact on people's preference in selecting woodland features. My first recommendation is improving the diversity of recreational facilities, including adding more facilities to accommodate different age groups, such as benches, picnic areas. It's worth noting that facilities should be placed in appropriate locations, such as away from the crowded parking lots and also not too deep in the forest. And the muddy trails are a common issue in most of the woodlands in Oakville, so it's suggested to mitigate the muddy sections by leaving paving stones or the mulch. Keep the woodlands clean all the time is also very important because it can help attract repeat visits. In terms of forest appearance, it's suggested to enhance landscape value by increasing vertical and horizontal structural difference and removal of dead wood that threaten public safety. Regular maintenance and management of woodland is also very important because it can contribute to controlling vegetation growth. In terms of the invasive species such as bog zones, purple loosestrips, it suggests to conduct routine periodic inspections and then remove these invasive species to balance the ecosystems. There as a reference. Thanks.